What was the dumbest rule your school enforced? Conservative Christian college. A group of us played Age of Empires one weekend. They didn't like it and called a meeting. Everyone involved got misdemeanors on their records. There was nothing in the handbook about it being against the rules. The only person that didn't get any punishment was the son of the president, even though he was just as involved as the rest of us. Was quite interesting explaining the write-up on my record when I transferred. You got a misdemeanor for what? Edit, they made it a rule after the fact and did this several other times with things such as nail polish or radio control helicopters. In my freshman year of high school we had a terrible vandalism problem. The bathrooms would be broken in various ways almost constantly. A stroke of pure genius. The staff decided that any bathroom that was vandalized would be closed for the week on first offense, the quarter for second, and permanently on the third offense. Semicolon. Holy shit, recently at my high school someone stole the F-King urinal. I have no clue how someone manages to do that. Took all the doors off the men's room bathroom stalls because of vandalism for 2 months. No backpacks to class. But purses were allowed. Girls started carrying around purses big enough to be considered a backpack. Guys got pissed, started carrying purses too. School added thumbprint scanners at gates of school which counted as registration. Needless to say I would just walk to school, scan my thumb and walk back home with them none the wiser. Was a great few months until they noticed. My high school mascot was Daniel Boone holding a musket. A kid wore a Guns N' Roses shirt to school and was told he had to change shirts because of the pistols on the shirt. He pointed out the hypocrisy of the school mascot and they changed everything. The mascot was switched to holding a flagpole instead. Every instance of the mascot was changed from the multiple signs outside and around the school to the giant picture in the middle of our basketball stadium. Holden. You're a F-King legend for this. Prom was a mandatory lockdown for the night in order to avoid students going to parties after prom. Prom was held at various house parties across town instead. I hated when schools shove their noses into everyone else's business. In 6th grade they switched out all student chairs for large rubber stability balls. There was a strict no bouncing rule. It was a disaster. Edit. This was in Arizona in the late 90s for those asking. The idea was to promote better posture. This wouldn't work with any age group. All the kids, 6th or 7th grade, started putting pink laces in their shoes. Don't know why, but the school officials banned colored laces saying pink is a gang color. You couldn't wear any kind of head items that were gang colors, red or blue. This included hairbands, scrunchies, beads in your hair, ribbons, anything. I got in trouble for wearing a blue hairband with white polka dots. Don't joke about the polka dot cartel. We had to wear belts. Someone snitched that people weren't wearing belts under their sweaters. And they actually checked and a bunch of people got detentions. We had belt raids at my school where the dean would burst into classes, completely interrupting any education, to check that everyone was wearing a belt. My school banned backpacks at one point. To protest, boys just didn't bring anything with them to class and girls brought really big purses. One of the funnier things that happened because of it was an interaction between my friend and a teacher. Teacher. Where's your book? Friend. In my backpack. Teacher. And where is that? Friend. Locked bathroom doors in the period after lunch. You should have gone at lunch. Also banned duct tape accessories back when that was a trend. They said it was gang activity. No jackets. They think we may hide things like phones or bombs there. If you were involved in a fight, you got suspended. While it sounds reasonable, context didn't matter. I got suspended once, not for throwing a single punch, kick, whatever. I got suspended because someone knocked the books out of my hand and when I reached down to grab them they punched me in the face. I got suspended for walking down the hallway and unprovoked getting punched in the face. FCK Brandon Valley Middle School. A girl and a boy couldn't sit together. The school employed disciplinarians to roam around the school and monitor this activity. If found, you'll get a reprimand. If found repeating the offense, you get sent to the principal office, and if continuing, then eventually escalated to the parents etc. Lol. Can't wear too many matching shirts because you could be a gang. This was in regards to a kid with cancer wanting to make a bunch of shirts. American schools seem to be obsessed with the idea of gangs. We weren't allowed to play tag football at lunch. Only frisbee. When I asked the principal what the difference was, he responded with a sarcastic tone. A football is round and a frisbee is a flat disc. He left the school later that year, went to another school, and a few years later was brought up on charges for failing to report the abuse of a student by a teacher. They decided everything bad happened in the last 5 minutes of lunch, so it got 5 minutes shorter each year. Any group more than 5 had to be up to no good. So no groups over 5. Edit. This was not some big city public school for troubled kids. It was a tiny Catholic school in a tiny farming town. The worst offense by a student of the whole time I was there was some kid walking across the street to get a soda from a store. Oh, this is just 2 groups of 3. Our school banned hugging because it was erotic. As you can imagine. Talk about homosexuality. There's no group that takes homoeroticism more seriously than late middle high school boys. You got in trouble if you wore just a Hanes white t-shirt after school because you were in your underwear. Involved in a fight. Same punishment regardless of fault, and this led to more dangerous fights due to everyone just going for it. Saw people use chairs, cricket bats and anything just to hand. Getting expelled from the school was really hard as it was the last chance school in the area, and after that it was a special reform school. My high school banned t-shirts that had the cover of Rush's album Signals, an album popular at the time, which features an image of a dog sniffing a fire hydrant. They considered it scatological because the dog was about to pee on it. This struck the entire student body as extremely stupid. Roughly 1/2 of the student body picked a day to wear the t-shirt. We won. We can't use black pens. Like why? Shoes are to be worn as the manufacturer intended. I have no clue who was wearing their shoes incorrectly, or how. But this line, verbatim, was repeated to us over the morning announcements when there were perceived infractions at various points throughout the year. No playing on the mini golf course. Due to the school having mineral rights on oil land in the mid-70s. Our school system had huge amounts of money. One thing they did was get 9 concrete animals on the playground for miniature golf. These looked like a lot of fun to play on for kids. And they were concrete, so they were indestructible. They took up 1/3 of the absolute center of the playground. We could not touch them, play on them or get anywhere near them. In pay we broke out the putters once in all of grade school. A few years later they had the high school seniors take them out with sledgehammers. They banned the word snap, since everyone used it instead of shti. So we all just started saying shti. The snap ban lasted about 3 days. In grade 8, we were banned from standing in circles at recess because of potential scandalous activity going on in the middle. We stood in squares instead. Be there and be square. We were all given these ugly planners at the beginning of the school year, with a few pages at the back filled with hall passes. If you didn't have your planner, or if all your boxes were filled, you weren't allowed to go to the bathroom. And no, you couldn't buy a new planner, or borrow one from your friend. The only excuse you had was if you had a doctor's note. They banned wristwatches. No one knows what the reason was. The $200 blazer was compulsory and we got detention every single day until we got it. Circa 1994 to 1997. No hugging. Like at all. First offense was a write-up. Second was detention. Third was in-school suspension. Middle school had banned salt and pepper from being used in the cafeteria. Claimed it was too unhealthy. Still sold Mountain Dew in the vending machines. No fist bumps. The reason for this is that kids might accidentally punch the other person in the face. Edit. Our school banned water bottles. For some reason an extreme health water drinking fad started among our girls and they began bringing larger and larger water bottles to school. Eventually the girls were all walking around with giant 5L jugs of water all over the school. It did kinda look ridiculous and my school was posh and image conscious with very elegant uniforms. So then one day the principal banned all water bottles and said that the girls must drink water from the taps in the bathrooms and the other faucets all over the school grounds. Our city has very clean tap water so it is safe. We couldn't wear winter clothing, jackets, hats, gloves in class because they were gang symbols. This was a small farm town in Wisconsin. Besides obviously having no gangs, it was f***ing cold. Even indoors. In the winter. But clearly wearing warm clothing is something only gangs do. Mitten Clan ain't nothing to FCK with. No jackets with hoodies. Attended all girls high school. You had to bring a male date to dances or not attend at all. No going solo or with your girlfriends. So backwards. Suspension as a punishment for skipping school. Don't want to come to school? Well now you can't. Until next week. Edit. And no tank tops in a desert climate. Because shoulders are too SI for school. They banned hats because hats can be used to signify gang colors. The only major crime group in our area was the Hells Angels and they certainly weren't having people wear hats for children to signify their allegiance. It was so bad a few years after I graduated I came back to volunteer as a chaperone for a school trip as a favor for my favorite teacher. The principal saw me wearing a beanie from across school. He literally sprinted half a mile to chase me down and tell me to take off the hat. When I told him I wasn't a student and didn't have follow the dress code he said either take off the hat, leave or he'd call the cops. It wasn't the actual day of the trip. Just had to show up to get the itinerary and stuff so I just said, FCKU. I'm out. Idiots. No touching the walls. They restored a building with historic value using, among other things, period appropriate paints. They then opened the planned primary school there and proceeded to try to get children to respect the restoration work. So we had a few years of benches in the hallways being 10 centimeters from the wall and children being reprimanded for leaning against the wall before the faculty gave up. All classes had to administer English spelling tests. In high school. I shit you not. So we'd be out in the yard for pay and have to take a written spelling test on the F-King pavement. It was a damned nightmare. School administration would poke around to enforce it. 2. It was all a part of an effort to get our standardized testing scores up. It backfired miserably. But they kept trying. The teachers absolutely hated it. And surprisingly, our administration was so F-ked. Edit. Small tidbit. This was part of an overall bigger thing because the school admin had enlisted the help of a quack of an educator and adopted their strategies for success. Aka piss everyone off big time with your bullshit. They began it when I entered high school. And it was still going when I left. No backpacks in the halls. Oh yeah. Because carrying all of our books between classes was a great F-King idea. Plus hardly any time between classes to exchange books meant carrying multiple classes things at once. Edit. Looks like this is the norm for quite a few people and school districts. Doesn't make the rule any less stupid. But to be fair it depends on your school. My middle school was 8 or so classes a day with 3 minutes between classes in a large school where classes could be far away from your locker. My high school was 4 classes and a much smaller building. But my friend's high school was similar to my middle school situation. My high school had half the bathrooms closed off at all times because they feared the students would smoke. Pokemon cards got banned in middle school because someone stole the vice principal's kids' cards. Yep. No brand name anything in the lunchroom. So you couldn't bring a small snack pack of say, Doritos. In your lunch it had to be in a clear plastic sandwich bag. Also, no food or beverage allowed in class. This included bottled water. As an adult, I now know the terrible headaches and migraines I suffered in my teen years were caused by dehydration and not being allowed to drink water during the day unless from the nasty water fountain. A type of candy because people would pretend to smoke it. Don't know if it's dumb or funny though. Edit. I'm a cheerleader. And for school spirit week I wore the uniform they gave me. I got dress coded. The boys in our school were not allowed to have hair that exceeded the width of a finger. Our principal used to check that by running her fingers through their hair. If their hair was long enough to outgrow her fingers, they were sent to a barber shop opposite to our school for a haircut. Dumb and weird. Zero tolerance policy. Most zero tolerance policies for anything in a school don't work because the teachers that enforce the hell out of them don't understand the situation. Then when you try to explain, you get interrupted before you say your first syllable. FCK. American schools are strict. I live in Estonia and reading through these comments I feel like I'll live in paradise. Our school doesn't even have an enforced dress code, and the first thing our principal told us was that there are no strict rules in this school because we believe you're smart enough to not do anything too stupid. So don't use our trust in you in a bad way and don't break our property. One teacher wanted us to write down what time we leave and return to and from a bathroom break. But this rule was soon just forgotten. My freshman dorm at a religious college had a list of rules that filled a legal-sized sheet of paper. It included being in your room for forced study time every night, keeping your towel straight on the towel rack, and making your bed by 9 AM every day, including weekends. So if you wanted to sleep in on Saturday morning, you were supposed to get up, make your bed, and then go back to sleep in top of the bed. Ah yes, the freedom of adulthood. We weren't allowed to have cough drops in our elementary because the school considered them drugs. God help you if you had a headache. Oh. You need an aspirin? Well. You need to eat more fiber. Because that's tough shit. In elementary, they banned running at Gnarly. No running on the playground either. They also banned all ball sports. And would take your ball if you took it in from home. And they would put it in the gym cupboard to be used during PE class, physical education. Keep in mind that these were 4-11-year-olds. So everyone ignored the rules and so many were in detention. I'm not sure what we called it. That they had to drop the rule and nothing came of that. But the second rule about ball sports? Well, it turned out that one of the kids in the year below me had bought an aside soccer ball by a really famous player. And the school took it and kept it. We found out because there was a very angry mother screaming at the secretary that they effectively stole something that could be worth upwards of $1,000. They obviously gave back the ball and stopped stealing them after that. Who would have thought that stealing from little kids was a bad idea? They banned dodgeball. No bits. School me. Couldn't even if I tried. 1. No hats. Period. Unless you were devoutly Jewish or Muslim or some other religion that required it. 2. No torn pants. Shirts or other articles of clothing. Not enforced at all. They still have it today. 3. No long jackets for boys. It was just fine for girls. Couldn't play tag outside. No wearing hats inside. No trading stuff from your lunch. This was all at my elementary. We weren't allowed to wear plain red, blue, yellow, or white tees because of the white tee song and thought there was t-shirt gangs. Semicolon. A second one was named after my crew. We weren't allowed to have any comic or anime artwork during school hours and students couldn't exchange money with each other unless the teacher approved. Around 2011-2012 my school tried to ban yoga pants because it's easier to see the butts. A ton of guys started showing up in yoga pants to protest. Some because they liked seeing the butts and some because girls had way too many dress code regulations already. My school got on the news and embarrassed the administrators so much that the rule was reversed. Always had to have your shirt tucked in. Not a uniform. But literally just any casual clothes that were worn to school had to be tucked in. Basketball shorts and tank top? Tucked or you get sent home. Jeans and long sleeve? Tucked. So fking goofy and authoritarian. But this was in a rural school in the south, so I am not surprised. I was a rebellious 16-year-old at the time and it pissed me off like nothing ever has. Girls must wear skirts even in the cold back rain. Everyone had to eat lunch silently. No talking. On Fridays. We had a stupid rule at my school. If you got in enough trouble to get an out of school suspension, you weren't allowed to come back until your parents came to the school for a meeting in person. Only during school hours. Mind you. 8:33. 30. Well, I was living with my dad at the time and received a 1-day out of school suspension. My dad was busy at FCK and worked pretty much every day from 8 AM 8 PM. And was never able to get to school for the meeting. What was supposed to be a 1-day suspension ended up with me missing 10 days of school. When my dad finally managed to get to the meeting, he fking reamed the principal.